Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. Good morning. Our room is starting to fill up here. I hope that you have your coffee and that you're enjoying wherever you are. We are, oh man, I think we got through 2 sentences last week. Whoopee! So I always love that part. And so we get to have an opportunity to chew on these things, right? And so often we say the words, we think we know what we're talking about, but when we really comes down to it and we really want to chew on it, right, there's an opportunity to go a little deeper. And the really interesting question is always to ask ourselves, what do I really mean by this? Or what do I think the teaching really means by this? And the constant challenge is to move it out of conventional wisdom. What you learned in school, what you learned from your parents, what you learned from science, although science can give us a lot of good underpinnings to what we're doing. But our world today is all about, can you see it, taste it, touch it, measure it, take it into a laboratory and reduce it to its parts. And so the opportunity of really spending time trying to understand, what do we mean by these things? And more importantly, always, how do we apply it? Always more important. How do we apply it? How do we practice it? Otherwise, it's nice conversation, nice words, yep, yada, yada, yada. And we don't really engage with it. I grew up Roman Catholic. We were Sunday Catholics. Actually, we were Sunday morning Catholics because I went to catechism, we went to church, and then not another word was said about anything religious or spiritual in the whole entire rest of the week. And I don't know if that was Catholicism or my parents or what that was, but clearly, our spirituality, our religion was reserved for the 9 to 11 hour or the 9 to noon hour, and that was that. There was no real conversation about application. The only conversation was, do you believe in it? And that was it. So in our teaching, we are diving really deeply into what does it mean for us and how do we apply it. So here we are. We're talking about the section we're in is called The Power of Thought, and we're in the section called Choosing Thought. And we ended last week with the idea that we have a right to choose what we wish to experience. And it is astonishing to me how often I am unprepared to activate that right. Oh, sorry, 143. We're at the bottom of 143. And how often I talk with people who, they don't want to limit the universe. They want to see what Spirit has in mind. The challenge with that is Spirit only has in mind for you to be happy, healthy, wealthy, fully expressing who you are. But there's no specifics in any of that. It's just being you, showing up in the universe as you. And the specifics are all up to us. And when we wait on it, when we don't choose, of course, what's doing the choosing for us? That which is in our subconscious mind, right? What's choosing for us is that which we believe to be true. What we believe to be true, everything from the nature of the universe to I'm not worthy and everything in between, is what is giving direction to this universal principle. And so by choosing thought, we begin to engage in conscious direction. And I really love this, that we have a right to choose. We have the right to choose the kind of companions with whom we wish to associate, to say in what city and what type of house we would like to live. Now here's the point, right? All of those things are often we use physical examples because you can point to them. You can tell you have a house that you like or you don't, right? But it's not because it's all about materiality or the material things. It's just that they're concrete examples, right? But you have the right to choose any of these things. But we have the right to choose who we want to be, how we want to show up. Right up here, Catherine, there's a spot. Well, how we want to show up in the world. We have a right to choose our values. We have a right to choose what we think is important. We have a right to choose to live in according with the spiritual principles that we espouse. We have whether or not it's agreeable to anybody else or in alignment with what anybody else thinks, right? So again, we do have a right to choose outward manifestations, but it's not by any means limited to that. But here's the point, right? Here's the fundamental reason why we have this right. We are individuals. And the only way we can be individuals is to be spontaneous. There is no such thing as a mechanistic individuality. It must have the essential elements of spontaneity. There is no spontaneity and no individuality without prerogative. Right? What does prerogative mean? Choice. To say, it's my prerogative to leave this job. It's my prerogative to follow my bliss and decide to go back to school. It's my prerogative to decide what kind of a life I want to lead, regardless of really whether it fits into the idea of what our family has decided or culture. And of course, we have one ethical prescription, one ethical box in which these prerogatives have to operate. And what's that ethical box? Thank you, Richard. Yes, back from behind the camera. I love it. Do no harm. Period. Now, we can't always know, all the unintended consequences. And sometimes, let's say, we leave a relationship or a job or, we move away and someone might feel harmed by it, right? Which is, of course, their prerogative. But as long as we're not intending harm, right? Do no harm. This is the box. And that's the ethical box in which all of this lives, and we must never, ever, ever forget that, right? That's the there is actually a box. Yes, in fact, we can actually choose things outside of that. And they will unfold, and we will reap the consequences of those things. So that's why our ethical box is not only intended for others, do no harm, but it's also a reminder that the harm we do will inevitably come back, right? And you're not going to get away with it. So you might as well stop in the first place. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, don't do it. Okay, so with that little caveat or that side note, this idea that we are individuals and that's to be spontaneous, we can't be It can't be automatic or robotic, or it can't be purely instinctive, right? There has to be an element of spontaneity. Otherwise, we really are not able to evidence this co-creative possibility. So think about, a rock. We actually ascribe consciousness to all of creation. There's an expression of consciousness that it is. But a rock can only roll down the mountain if something dislodges it, causes it to roll down the mountain. Usually water and wind and things like that, maybe an earthquake. Right? Then we think about plants. Most plants, they are subject to the variety of the wind or the animals that have eaten the seeds and then pooped it back out again someplace else, but it's kind of stuck. It's kind of stuck growing there. The seed did not say, gosh, I would really like to go over there and be planted. And once it's growing, it has no prerogative. It could be planted in a place where there's not enough light. Bummer. Right? It has no choice. It has no option. It can only try to grow there to the best of its ability. Do you see? So, and then and then this is straight Hinduism, okay, what I'm telling you is straight Hinduism. Troward explains it beautifully. Science of Mind picks it up from that whole like chain of thinking. But so then you get to animals, they have a certain level of spontaneity, but they can't operate outside of the instinctive box in which they're in. Very few dogs are actually going to learn how to climb trees because they're not designed that way, right? And there's lots of things that they do that are surprising and lovely and wonderful, but a bear isn't necessarily going to choose to move into the city and decide to get a job. Right? I mean, and when we say it that way, we understand that it's silly. But do you see, we're framing this, what does it mean to be spontaneous and not automatic? Now, that doesn't mean that an animal is robotic. And it doesn't mean that dogs can't tell their master from the neighbor. That doesn't mean that the dog can't tell that it's, a certain time because they're so instinctively engaged and they know that their child, their kid that they're connected to is coming home from school. Do you see? But all of that is within the framework of a way of being in the world outside of which they can't really get. And of course, all of this is a continuum. So there's no hard and fast lines between all of these, right? And so then we have, dolphins and higher, the higher mammals, apes, which have a lot more on board in terms of spontaneity. And we begin to see that bridge into the ability to choose. The ability to choose. And our ability to choose is so free that we can choose to turn our back on truth. Whereas an animal or a plant cannot turn its back on its own way of being in the world. Can't become something different. Do you see? And so this is the fundamental piece of self-awareness. We can become aware of our own life, our own environment, our own expression, our own experience, and we can choose, I like it, I don't like it. I want to do something different. I want to be somebody different. Actually, just had this conversation not too long ago with somebody I was coaching. I said, it's not how you feel. Yes, you have to feel your feelings, but the question has to be, ultimately, how do you choose to show up in the world? Yeah. Who are you going to be in terms of the way you show up in the world? Are you going to be somebody who whines and complains and always a victim? Or are you going to choose to be someone who makes decisions for themselves, who takes responsibility? Are you going to choose to see the positive instead of the negative all the time? Right? These are all choices that are in fact available to us, regardless of the tendency that we inherited from our environment. Do you see? We're not stuck. If that were true, nothing would ever change. No, right? We would truly be stuck. And yet we're not. We see the evolution of humanity despite any sense of moving forward and then moving backward. There's always an overarching progress of humanity discovering more and more and more about not only the world, but about ourselves. And so this idea of spontaneous choice, and wait a minute, here we go. There can be no choice unless there is something from which to choose. Obviously. Otherwise, the ability to choose would be merely fantasy. Right, obvious, but how many of us say, well, I'm going to see what Spirit wants for me? Thinking that something else outside of us is going to make that choice. Right? What I'm actually saying is I want to see how life as me, what's my sense of how life as me is wanting to express. But I'm still at choice. I can either align with it, express that way, or I can say, oh, no, that's not really it. I have to be safe. Or, oh, no, I don't really get how that's going to work out. Do you see? We instantly have a choice. We either feel the impress and we follow it, or we go, or we're just too busy to hear it. And so there has to be things to choose from. So this is why, way back in the beginning of the book, for those of you who were with us, 2 years ago? Whenever we started it, this is on the very first page of the thing itself, the first page of the first chapter on page 25. We see abundance in the universe. We cannot count the grains of sand on a single beach. The earth contains untold riches, and the very air is vibrant with power. Why then are we weak, poor, and afraid? The science of mind deals with these questions. The divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God-ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctively feel this. The truth points to freedom under law. As Ross said the other day, if I just follow the rules. We just had a conversation in one of our classes this week, right? What does it mean? It means to be obedient to the law, right? You have to be obedient to the law of gravity to launch a rocket to the moon. Do you see? Right? You have to be obedient to the law of gravity, which means you have to understand it, understand how it works, work within its framework, know how much force is needed to overcome that law of gravity so that you can actually get out of gravity. But without understanding the law of gravity, you don't actually know how to take a rocket into space. That's what it means to be obedient to the law, to use the law under the law. Thus, the inherent nature of human beings is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. Ooh, man. And sometimes it appears to me that the biggest problem with our choice, that the fact that we have choice and that we can choose, and that sense of freedom, is that we want certainty. We want to know that it's the right choice, right? And then we have to ask ourselves, but according to who? Right? What right choice? And so this radical responsibility joined with radical freedom is ridiculously scary, right? But that's the divine plan for us. That's the divine plan for us. And he says, Ernest Holmes says elsewhere, we are left alone to discover ourselves. I love that phrase. We are left alone to discover ourselves. What a beautiful thing. There's no judgment in that. There's no, if you don't measure up to a certain thing or a certain box or a certain way, you're not okay. And, I grew up, and then you're consigned to where, right? We're left alone to discover ourselves. We cannot do that unless we have the freedom to choose. We exercise our freedom to choose, and we discover those choices that make messes. We discover those choices that don't actually outpicture or bring to us what we thought we wanted or we're trying to achieve. All right, so we're going to explore this freedom to choose. What's great about it? What's hard about it? How do we overcome our fear of this freedom? So we're going to say good morning to Ryan. We already said good morning to Richard.
Shout out to Richard.
I know.
We don't give that man enough praise. If
we
you
do
guys
not. That's
love
true.
The pans and the Zooms, that's all Richard over there. So shout out to the amazing Richard. And good morning to you, Dr. Petra, and good morning to everybody here in the room. Thank you for waving to me so I don't feel like a complete weirdo here. Well, and I also want to say good morning to North Carolina, Virginia, Mexico, Spain, Cambodia, and the Philippines.
Yeah. Good morning, good morning.
If we missed you, make sure to check in and tell us where you're watching us from, because we love to see our growth.
Yep.
And we love that you are in community with us today.
Yes, all over the world in community together.
all over the world. And so I just have some housekeeping rules. If you're here in the room and you'd love to share, just feel free to raise your hand. And I know that Armando, our lovely Armando, is going to be coming up here first. I also do have a question here online, so we'll move to that afterwards. So for the folks that are in the Zoom room, go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon located down below underneath the More or Reactions tab, and or you can put your question and comment inside of the chat. And the same goes true to all the lovely folks that are joining us all over the globe on Facebook Live. Make sure to put your questions and comments into the chat, and I can bring that into the room as well. And I like to say, I always like to say this, I keep those anonymous chats so that way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So let's get it kicked off here with Armando here in the room, and then we'll move online. Go ahead, Armando.
Good morning, Dr. Petra.
Good morning.
Armando here. Just perfect timing. I made a choice yesterday, and well, before I get started, I have this strong vibration, this energy that is moving me in a way that it's unbelievable in many ways, and I'm getting a step closer to be meeting with the governor's office, and things are moving, and I can feel the energy. I can feel things happening, not visually, but I can feel it.
Yes. It always happens in consciousness first, right? Mm-hmm.
And I've been told that I need to prepare myself as I start to move and elevate my presence in the world. Mm-hmm. And with that, to make sure that my past is clean. And what I didn't realize was that I was holding back part of my story because of my fear of what people would think. Mm-hmm. And so I met with a PR firm, and I'm going to hire her. And she asked questions about my past that I did not expect. But what she reminded me was that you're such a forward thinker that you're taking responsibility for your narrative, and to prepare me so that if there is any negative whatever, that I am prepared and that I get to dictate the narrative how I want it to be. And at the beginning of these questions was thinking that I had to share that in real time, and I don't. I can, whatever happened in my past, I can speak to it from today's view of who I am today, not telling the story in real time. Am I scared? Yes. She asked me, are you ready to tell your story? Because it's very inspiring and very impactful. And I said, I paused, and I had tears. And I said, yes, I'm ready. And basically, what I am claiming is that I'm ready to stand in front of the world naked.
Yes.
And this is who I am. And I get to dictate my narrative and to tell it the way that I want it to be told.
Right.
And it's very freeing. And it's a good place to be. And I see a lot of spontaneity happening in my life. And I'm just so grateful that I made the choice to move forward and not stay trapped in that story, because there's so much for me to share with the world. And I'm ready, and it was a big decision for me to make.
Big decision.
But I'm willing, and I'm ready, and it's a good place to be. It's very freeing. I'm still going through the emotional process of it, but I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Not literally, but I know that
Yes.
the universe has something really spectacular and ready for me, and I'm ready to take it on, whatever that may be. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you, Armando, and thank you for sharing and sharing so honestly, right? Because it is when we choose to make these really forward steps, it would actually be surprising if we weren't afraid, and if it didn't feel big, and if it wasn't pushing our boundaries. Because if that were the case, we would have done it before, right? And this full orbed, I loved what you said, stand naked in front of the world, right? Because then we are authentically in integrity. We're always who we are all the time, everywhere. And what a powerful thing. And yes, and I see how moved you are by it. And it's, those are the things. The tears always tell us there's something really important going on, right? And if we will not be afraid of our fear will tell us exactly where the work is. Go toward it, not away from it. But I want to be comfortable. I don't like the way it feels. But that's where the next, right? And you're such an inspiration to all of us, and thank you for continually sharing, because you're sharing your story, your experience in real time, which helps other people think, oh, where am I holding myself back? Where am I stuck? Where am I allowing my fear to keep me from just being full out myself? So thank you. Thanks for your sharing. All right, Ryan.
Yes, round of applause for Armando.
Yes, absolutely.
You need to feel that, my friend. And I know all the people online. I guess that we have a few more places, too, that we forgot. California, Pittsburgh, and Austin.
Yes.
And North Carolina and Virginia.
All the lovely places around the U.S. Yay.
All right, I'm going to go here to this question, and then we'll come over to you, Sean. So the question asks, what spiritual practice best helps us when we do not see a choice in a situation or can't imagine something can be different?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. Oh, so I have spent many portions of my life either waiting for something to happen or change, or feeling stuck because of that same kind of thing. So I think sometimes the mistake we make, and I think Armando, you articulated it beautifully. We feel like we've been taught we have to know the outcome. This is true. But it could be that we are trying to define the outcome as a form, when in fact what the outcome is we're looking for is unstuckness. Right? And we may not know what the form is, but first we have to move out of the sense of being stuck or trapped or unable to move. We can't see any other direction, right? So for me, one of my spiritual practices is this is literally how I talk to myself. Okay? I say to myself, okay, look, it's an infinite universe. The infinite intelligence is managing a freaking infinite universe. It knows how to grow stars and galaxies and an infinite expression of life itself. Okay? In this particular moment, around this particular thing, it's a nanosecond. Yeah. A nanosecond. And if that intelligence can do all of that, there is enough intelligence moving as me to bring about choices. The piece that comes after that for me is then to say, and what I know in this intelligence, it's infinite. What does that mean? There can't only be choice A. That is not the definition of infinite. Nor can there be a choice between A and B. That is duality and is also not the definition of infinite. So there must be choice A, B, C, D, E, G, K, L, P, triple A. I mean, truly, there are an infinite number of choices. But I don't like all those choices. Do you see? I have already pre-chosen that I don't want to change. I don't like the choices that are going to require change. And so I spend my time going, all right, so if there's, let's say, A through K, opportunities, choices available to me because it's an infinite universe and the infinite intelligence of the universe is managing the universe. Okay, let's really bend our mind around that for a minute. Surely it can. There is an intelligence moving as me and in the universe attracting me to some other choices and making them known to me. then I have to take responsibility for the fact that I'm the one who's saying, not that, not that, not that, not that. So now I have to recognize that I am the one who's put myself into the box of only this. So then I get to examine, well, why not that? Well, that's too scary. Well, why not that? Well, I can't even imagine how that's going to work out. Okay, but what if you did imagine that the infinite intelligence of the universe, which, by the way, is managing the universe, could manage the how of that? Oh. What if this, which you're afraid of, is exactly the place where you need to go to shatter your own sense of stuckness? Shit. That's usually my response to that, right? I have to take responsibility for the fact that I'm allowing my fear to stand in my own way. Is it really going to be that bad? I don't know. I have an infinite universe and an infinite intelligence that is guiding and directing this process. So what if that were bigger than the thing I'm afraid of? Oh. Do you see? And I'm not, at that point, trying to figure out what the outcome is. The first outcome is for me to embody and embrace that I can actually be unstuck. That there is a way of moving forward, right? And I don't have to see that, because that is actually what we are obedient to in the law. What we have to do is embody that it is true that we are at choice. And then that's our freedom. Then we have to embody that we are taking responsibility for the choices we're making or not making. Right? And that's our choice. It's not anybody else's. Somebody can guide you, somebody can tell you, you can get advice, all of that stuff, but ultimately, it is our choice. So, for me, one of the most profound experiences of this was my mother was at one point thinking about leaving her husband and talking to me and my sister and doing things that was kind of setting it up. And she was going to move with me out of Dallas when I had just gotten here, had graduated from school, and before I got really involved here at the center. And she said, okay, so when you move, I'm going to move with you. Well, thanks to CSLDallas, I didn't move. I stayed here, right? And then she was like, oh, but I can't live in Dallas. I can't live anywhere near here if I'm gonna end this marriage. I was like, okay, that's an interesting box to put yourself in. Are you sure? Yes, absolutely. I absolutely cannot do that. Okay. And so she, so we didn't talk about it for a little while. And she said, I realized, and when I was like, okay, what are you gonna do, Mom? She said, well, I realized that if I decide to do this, I'm going to completely change my standard of living. Because she hadn't worked very much. She'd been mostly stay-at-home mom, small, pension from whatever thing from Germany and whatever. She said, I'm going to completely change my standard of living. And I've decided I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to stay in my marriage and I'm going to have my own life. And that was when she wrote her book. Wow. When she made that decision, I am going to have my own life. And she, not like in a, I don't want to say, like in a FU to the husband, not like that. Not, they did a lot of things together. They still went, church together. She was very supportive of him and whatever. But she just decided that she was going to do her thing. And so she went to a writer's group, wrote a book, went around to colleges in Texas for 5 years talking about what it was like to grow up in Nazi Germany and what we should be paying attention to and what we should be remembering and how that was and all of that. I mean, she was just this amazing inspiration. But do you see that she found her freedom because she took responsibility for every piece of those choices, whereas somebody else might have said, I'm not going to change my standard of living, therefore I'm stuck. Do you see? That was the freedom of the choice and the freedom, the spontaneous way of saying, well, so I'm making this choice, so now what's the next choice? And then what's the next choice? And how am I going to live out of that choice? And do I have the freedom? And of course, my stepfather was a little like, you're going to do what? And then she was the one who was out front, right? Because he'd been a priest for 50 years. He was always the one who was up front talking. And now she's up front talking, right? And he had to get over his little self about all of that. And do you see what I'm saying? And she wanted, and she was very graceful about it. It's, as I said, it's not like she cut him out, because they were still in marriage in a household. It was extraordinary to watch her exercise her freedom inside the choices she was taking responsibility for making. Oh my gosh. Do you see? And not every choice is bliss. That would be silly, right? I mean, I made a lot of choices because I had a child. Had I not had a child, I would have made different choices. Not right or wrong. Do you see? Not right or wrong. Situational. And I could make a choice 10 years ago that I wouldn't make today. Seasonal. Life seasonal. All of that. And so, I hope this is helpful. All right, let's come into the room. I think we have one behind you. And then we'll come up here.
Let's go to Sean, and then we can poll the audience again.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean. I almost forgot.
Oh, that's okay.
I was so present.
That's all right.
I'm super grateful for being here, and I'm super grateful that we unpacked that word, prerogative and choice. Because I don't know, I feel like for me, for a long time recently, in the last 3 to 4 years, I almost felt like I didn't have a choice, right? Like I felt like the story that I was carrying on was limiting me and keeping me into a headspace that choice didn't even exist, that I was in victim mode and I was just reacting to things over and over again. So today, when we talk about the idea of a choice and actually exercising and practicing choice, is a beautiful thing, that I do get a sense of freedom in that. And realizing that there was a point in my victimhood that I was like, I did decide that this is no longer how I want to show up in the world, that I'm going to take the necessary actions, whether it feels good or not, or whether it's tough or not, right? Like that I'm going to do the work that is required for me to show up differently. And in that process is not very easy. Like as even in right now, like when you talk about changing your lifestyle, your quality of living, when I think of where I'm at today, I'm literally not at the quality of living physically, but spiritually, emotionally, relationship-wise, like community-wise, like I know that, I don't know, but I've come to find out, I guess, in my practice that I'm just grateful that today I can literally choose to show up differently. And I'm building a confidence that I can do it, because fear, I mean, all the things that we talked about, I can go on and on about, but like all of those things was limiting me. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for the stories. I'm grateful for the teaching and wisdom.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you. And I loved what you said, right? At some point, you have to make the choice to change, and it starts internally, that you even have a choice. And no, of course, it's not always easy. No, it's not. Because it's, well, let me say this. It can be very easy when we trust the law. It's not always comfortable. And we are addicted to comfort, right? We don't want anything to feel bad. But I don't know about you, but when I climb a mountain, there are times when my legs feel bad, right? And my lungs are burning, right? But I'm loving being out there, and I'm going to conquer that mountain come hell or high water, right? And our lives are the same. Our lives are exactly the same. And we just, we want something to just magically float us up the mountain. But what fun is that? The fun is in the conquering of it, the sustained effort of it. And go, I did that. I climbed that mountain. I shifted my life. I did, in fact. And it starts on the inside. And then the pieces become more effortless, right? So I want to go back to this I have to. So another tool, another tip that you can use is to turn every have to into I get to. I have to brush my teeth. Well, actually you don't. There are people who don't ever brush their teeth. I get to brush my teeth. I get to brush my teeth to make sure that my teeth stay healthy and that people actually want to talk with me and stand there in front of me and talk with me, right? Then we do that for a while. Take everything that you say, I have to do this, and say, I get to do this. I have to do this because it's part of my job. No, I get to do this because I chose this job. I get to do this because I have this job, right? So do that for a while, and then if you're really brave, then you change the I get to I choose to. I get to sit in front of this computer because it's part of my job. I choose to sit in front of this computer because it's part of the job I chose. Do you see? It changes everything. Because I do actually at that moment have the freedom to choose not to be in front of the computer. And then I'm probably choosing not to have that job anymore. Right? But that's the thing, right? Do you see? Choices have consequences. They have outcomes. And the consequences aren't anything out there saying, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson where you're going to learn a lesson from this, or I brought this onto myself so I could learn. No, it's just the law. We are being obedient to the law. And the law says these choices outpicture these ways. And so to move from, the only thing you have to do is die and live until you die. You actually don't even have to pay taxes. You don't have to. And the consequence might be going to jail. But it's up to you to decide whether or not you can live with that consequence. Or the fear of being found out that you're not paying your taxes. Do you see? A lot of people pay them just because they're afraid they're going to be found out. That's a good enough reason to do it. But otherwise, those are the only two things you have to do. Everything else is a choice. Everything. I choose to follow the direction of the teacher because I don't want to be sent out into the hallway. Not I have to follow the directions. No, we choose it every time because something within us has calibrated the consequences or the outcomes. And we say, I don't like those outcomes, so therefore I have to do this. No. I have to, start with I have to, change it to I get to. Live with that for a while and then change it to I choose to. And watch your freedom open up. Yeah, okay. I think we're here, Ross? Oh, somebody behind. Oh, please. Okay.
Hey, I'm Nicole. So this idea of choice and applications of metaphysic principles. We get to choose to be healthy, wealthy, and happy, and it doesn't feel that way. Whenever I try to explain that to people, and when I am walking through life not necessarily healthy, wealthy, and happy because I am not properly applying the law to my life, I just think back to being in a nightmare and reminding myself that it really does feel like I have no control over what's happening, but the truth is I do. Mm-hmm. I know I do. And there are points in my life where I have learned to control my dreams to a certain extent. And in the waking world, I know I have the advantage of consciousness. Mm-hmm. I have the advantage of being able to take the principles I've learned through metaphysics, like, for example, that all things are impermanent. Things are going to change. I can apply that law and remind myself that I can use it. Yes. I can understand metaphor and say that as above, so below. And I can take another part of life and look at a way out of that. And now I can apply it to this. And oh my God, there's an answer. So what are some more exercises and practices that we can do to learn to control this dream that we feel like we're walking in through consciousness?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nicole. And one of the ways that we get to exercise our choice is whether or not we're going to allow outside circumstances to impact us. It doesn't always mean that we are controlling the outside circumstances, and sometimes it is, I'm simply not going to allow them to impact me. That is a choice I have. Right? I can choose to say, I'm going to continue on the way that I am or how I'm thinking or who I'm being. I'm going to continue on regardless of what this is out here. And so this is a really powerful way of engaging with our choice and keeps us out of that place of victim, and it keeps us out of that place of feeling like we don't have control, right? So, for instance, with some of the things that are going on in our political situation, right, and there may be some concern or fear about how some of these things might impact us, or might impact us individually, or might impact us collectively. And we're watching some of the impact going on, right? So my choice is, well, I have a lot of choices about what I'm going to do or how we're going to engage and all of that. But fundamentally, my choice is, am I going to choose love or fear? So am I going to be afraid of how these things are going to impact me? Or am I going to choose to curate what I take in and be the love, be the presence, that, and be the love of my life and the love of the lives of people that I'm engaged with, impacting, all of those things, and be that no matter what's going on out here. Do you see? That's like a fundamental choice we have. And it's yeah, it's a whole nother level of taking responsibility for, am I living from the inside out or from the outside in, right? And so we have to, it's finding the opening. Where can I exercise my choice? What choices are available to me? And again, I go back to, it's an infinite universe. There must be a choice here somewhere. Like there must be a pony in all this. In all this manure, there must be a pony around here somewhere, right? And so it's assuming that there's a choice, that there are choices available. So now I'm going to look for them. And if I look for them, the universe must show them to me, right? Sometimes that's the place to start. Great. Okay, I'm getting the wrap-up signal. So
Yes,
we're wrapping up.
It is a wrap-up. But before we go, I just want to give you guys a couple of notes on some upcoming events. Today is our annual meeting, so for those who are joining us for that, if you're a member or whatever.
Yeah, we need everybody to come.
You can show up after the celebration today, and for the folks online, if you're going to attend via Zoom, we're going to get that kicked off at about noon. So head over to CSLDallas.org, and you can register there to get the Zoom meeting link for today. Also, Dr. Peacher, we have a special guest that's going to be coming up.
I'm so
here
excited.
On April 6th is Patrick Harbula. Dr. Patrick Harbula is going to be coming here, and he's going to be it's going to be kind of a two-part. He's going to have a speaking Sunday followed by a workshop, and then he's going to have an 8-week course. Can you tell us a little bit about the topic?
Yeah, so Patrick has fallen in love with this book that was written by somebody else, not written by Patrick. It's called Existential Kink. I love it. I love the book so much. Existential Kink. And it's all about uncovering your unconscious, about dealing with your shadow in a way that just kind of turns it on its head. And we often fear our shadow work, especially those of us who are light workers, and we don't want to deal with the shadow. And, so this is a whole nother way of doing it. And it's really, really interesting. And it will push you in ways that you do not expect to be pushed. But the great news is Patrick is a super fun and very energetic and quite humorous speaker and teacher. So he really gets a hold of this material. And some of it you'll have heard before, but it's in a whole new way. So the Sunday afternoon is a love offering. So he's going to talk, then go a little deeper in the Sunday afternoon. That's for a love offering. You can sign up. It is hybrid, either in person or online. And then he's staying over in Dallas for Monday. He's going to start the class. The class on Monday, the first Monday, the 7th, is actually hybrid so that we can be in class with him in person. You can be online as well. And then the following 7 weeks are online only. So it's be inspired by the talk, go deeper in the workshop. And then if you're brave and you're feeling like you want to free yourself from your shadow in a whole new way, then there's an 8-week opportunity to dive in a little deeper. It's the 6th.
April 6th.
It is. It's next week.
Yes.
It's next week. And then, and so...
No. It's
in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yes, because we have the one more week in March, and then in 2 weeks. And there's an early bird registration. So check it out. Check it out soon, because I don't know when the early bird ends. So check it out right now. Get your tickets for the class. And sign up for the workshop.
Also, Dr. Peacher and Dr. Patrick Harbula did a live stream just a few days ago for the Season for Peace and Nonviolence. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of who Patrick is, because he does talk a little bit about the workshop. And on the note of Season for Peace and Nonviolence, we have a lovely celebration that's going to be coming up on April 5th. It's Saturday, April 5th from noon to 1 p.m. here at CSL Dallas in that Central Time. We will also be doing a live stream for all the folks online all around the globe, because apparently I forgot a couple of them. We have Calgary, Canada, Wichita Falls, Wisconsin's in the house, and so is New York.
Yeah, I love it so much.
We see you, we hear you, and we want to celebrate the Season for Peace and Nonviolence. It is the closing of it, and so I just invite you all to either join us online or here in the meditation hall.
And if you are coming in person, you don't necessarily have to register for it, but if you are going to be online, you must, no, it's live streamed on Facebook.
It's live streamed.
Yeah,
No
so you don't have to register at all. Just check it out, noon. Noon on that Saturday. It's an hour conversation, more meditation, really continuing to set our intention, because we choose to have it be different than it is, and we set our intention because we have the freedom to do so and to make a difference. So lots of cool things coming up, and then I really urge you to be here for our Easter celebration. We have a pretty astonishing day or celebration cooked up.
Shh! Don't give away all of our secrets yet.
They've
got to go to the website to figure it out, Petra. Come on now. It's gonna be super fun.
Go to the website, find out about Easter. So we're going to carry on in our book next week. Have a beautiful week. Bye for now.
All right.